Welcome to the farm. Today I'm going to share with you how I take care of these girls in the winter time. All right, I give the chickens fodder every morning, but I also give them a special little treat. It's like really nice whole grain, more expensive food. So they only get this much every day. And I actually have a chicken that's been sick. She had an egg break inside her, I think. So she's been in here for a couple days recuperating, and now she's looking pretty good. I think she's ready to join her sisters. You ready to go home, darling, huh? You ready to go back to be with your sisters? Come here, babe. Come here.
Come on, let's go to the chickens.
Come on, Rube. Morning, girls. Morning. You're home. Ruby, that's not your food, that's chicken food, goofball. Okay, girlie. I think she's happy to be home. Are you?
Yeah.
I didn't think she was going to make it, but she did. Now, I usually get the food ready before I let them out. I dump the special food in their trough, and I take the fodder and throw it all over the place so they all have turns to get it. Because some of them can be more little piggies and not as nice. So that way it's more evenly distributed. And now comes the fun part. Okay, girls, are you ready to come out? Are you ready? Okay, there you go. Well, these are the girls that prefer the special food, but most of the chickens prefer the fodder. They definitely have their preferences. This is the one time of day where the chicken yard is relatively quiet. Most mornings in the winter, I do open these back doors. There's hardware wire here, so they're safe, but at least they get some ventilation during the day. Now, if it's an especially windy day, I don't open it. I want them to have a place to really get away from the wind. But for today, it's going to be sunny. It's cold, but it's sunny and nice.
Well, it's going to get up to 40 later. So.
Yeah, they want fresh air. They'll be happy.
So right now, it's about 15 degrees, I think.
And I always check to make sure nobody dropped an egg during the night. Well, now that Ruby's had breakfast and the chickens have breakfast, now we get breakfast. And Donnie's in the mood to cook today, so we're having bacon, potatoes, eggs, and some yummy sour bread toast. Yum. One thing I do for the chickens over winter is I grow fodder. And all this is wheat and barley that I sprout and grow out for a couple days so I can give them a nice mat of plants, seeds, and roots. It is so good for them in the winter. They have nothing else green. It's easy for them to digest, gives them some vitamins and nutrients that their regular food doesn't give them. Plus, they love it. Now, it doesn't actually start here. The process starts in my laundry room. Go to my laundry room, which is also a fodder germinating room. Now, I've seen people that have really cool fodder setups where they have trays on shelves and you water the top and the water runs down all through. I don't have that set up. I do it a very simple way, but it works for me. And it's in my little utility sink in my laundry room. And all it is the first day, I take a jar full of, well, half full of wheat and barley, fill it with water. I let that soak for a day. Okay, that just sits like it is for a day. And then day 2, I actually have these nifty little things on top of the jars that strain it. I will fill this jar with water, and that's day 2. Day 3, this has been in here for 2 or 3 days, and day 4. Now day 4 is special because today this will actually get graduated to the tray in the grow room to start growing. And you see it's got a little bit of roots growing in it. So it is ready to start growing. It's been soaked and dried for 4 days. So now back here, all I do is start filling all these jars with water so they all get wet down again. And I'll take day 4 out and put it in this grow room to start growing.
So you fill it with water and then what?
I'm going to let these sit here for a couple minutes while I'm dumping jar 4. Then when I come back to fill it up again, I'll drain the water out. But they're sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes absorbing the water, so they'll stay wet for the next day or so. Next day till I soak them again. And that's all it is just keeping them wet down. And same way when they go in their trays, it's just I'm watering them twice a day. In here I only do it once a day. Out there I do it twice a day. But it's just enough to keep the grains wet so they germinate, stay alive, and start to grow. And these little lids, I didn't buy these, a friend of mine gave them to me, but I've seen them on Amazon. I think they're actually called like mason jar straining lids or something. But they're really perfect for growing these, or if you grow sprouts to eat, they're good for that too. And some people just sprout food for their chickens, which is good too. I guess it's easier to digest, but in the winter, I like to give them actually something green. And they eat the green part, any seeds that didn't germinate, every bit of root. There is not one bit of fodder left when they're done.
Okay, so what's the difference between sprouting those and then what you're doing in the grow room now, letting them grow up to be green?
They would be give them to them just like this. They've sprouted, like the little kernels have opened up and given their root out. They've sprouted, but they haven't really started to grow.
Okay, the ones in your grow room, what do you call those?
I don't know. They're actually plants. They've grown. They're plants.
Okay.
So now I'm going to drain the water off of this before I take it out to the grow room to spread it in a tray. This is where these lids are wonderful.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How are you making out with your notice post?
My what?
The sign on your door back there.
I haven't gotten any help. You know, I may have to put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, since I drained day 4, I'm going to put the lid onto day 1, which is now day 2. The whole process only takes 8 days from the time you start soaking it to the time I feed it to the chicken. It's 8 days. So now I'll go dump this in a tray and it'll start greening up for the chickens. Well, this is my really high-tech system to do this. And the next phase, you want to be able to water it, but you don't want the stuff sitting in water now. So I simply have one of my trays with holes drilled in it, sitting on top of a tray that doesn't have holes. And I have little cut-up egg cartons sitting in there, so the top tray is elevated a little bit, not sitting in the water. So, really high-tech, you can see. All I do is, this is the jar that's been soaking for 4 days. Dump it in the tray and kind of spread it out. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, just roughly out. And this is ready to start greening up. So now the ones that have been starting to green up, twice a day I do this. I take them and I dump any water that's drained out so there's not water just stagnantly sitting in there, and I give them a quick water.
So fresh water helps?
Yep. The way you want to keep it somewhat moist is it's a growing plant. And I'm going to stick this then on the end. That's what the chickens will get to eat tomorrow. This is what they'll eat the day after tomorrow. And again, I drain the water off and just give them a drink.
So what would happen if you didn't drain the water?
They don't grow as well. You won't get a nice thick root mat. If you didn't water it at all, they'd probably eventually just die.
Well, but if you just left old water in there?
Well, it would get all moldy and yucky.
All right.
Yeah, you don't want to have, you can have water soaking on for a certain time, but you don't want it on too long. So now this is the tray that I just dumped in here yesterday. And it already has green growing in it.
Okay.
And again, I'll dump any water out and water it. And I keep it covered with a dome, a humidity dome, just for one day. The first day I dump it in here. After that, I don't keep a humidity dome. So, in the theme of 8 days, this is day 8, 7, 6, and the stuff I just dumped today, I'll put right here and put the humidity dome on it. And then we go back to the grow room, or back to the laundry room, to do the next part for the next day. It's all a process. So the last step in my fodder chore every day is to refill the jar for the next time. And I just put roughly 2 cups. That's all personal preference, how much you want to do in a day. So I have it full, about half full, fill it up with water. And while it's filling up, I drain the other ones. So that grain will just be nice and wet in there, sitting for a day, getting ready to sprout. So this is not the most high-tech way to do it, but it works.
So it's nice to have a utility sink here in your laundry room.
It is. Otherwise, I'd probably do it in a shower somewhere. I don't know. So now that just sits for today, and tomorrow I start all over again. But the chickens, I think it's worth it doing it. It's not that much work, and they really appreciate it, I can tell.
They told me the same thing.
One of the first things we do when winter's coming is to put this paneling up on the side of the chicken coop. And it's actually a polycarbonate, like multi-layer thing. And we put it halfway up, half height on this side, but we put it the whole way to the top on the other side of the coop. And that's because if a nor'easter comes, it's going to blow in that side. But we do sometimes get winds from this side. So it not only keeps the draft out, it keeps the snow from blowing in the chicken coop. And you want to keep chickens from having the wind and from having lots of wet. You got to keep them dry. So this really serves a purpose. You still want air blowing through, but not too much air. So this is a perfect solution.
Okay, question. So
Yes.
when it's really nasty and windy during the day, do they always come out of the enclosed coop, or do they retreat back to there when it's really ugly?
A lot of times they are still out. They aren't out in the yard as much, but they're still out eating, drinking. They're still out and about, usually unless it's raining or snowing. That's when they don't come out. My girls are wusses. They don't like the snow.
Now, when you say come out, they come out of the roosting.
They come out of their hen house up there where they sleep at night, and they're in their enclosed run. But lots of times they come out here too, even if it's windy, just not if it's wet. Now, after the rain, they'll come out because they want to dip the worms, but not while it's really pouring rain. They usually stay in. But they have a nice big enclosed run. They're fine in there. Now, since my girls are not real fond of the snow, one thing I do in the winter, I always have a bunch of bags of leaves around here. And when it does snow, I'll sometimes shovel a path, and sometimes I just throw leaves over the snow. And if there's leaves on top of the snow, they'll come out and walk around. They just don't like walking on the snow. Yes, they're a little bit of a prima donna. But I love the leaves for that purpose, but I also sometimes empty bags of leaves inside the run, inside their enclosed run, so they can dig through them, play with them, and they also just love hanging in there. It gives them a little bit of place to huddle down and keep warm. So bags of leaves come in very handy. That is Apple, and she is my loudest chicken.
Now, what are those wires coming down for?
That's one thing we do in the winter. It does get below freezing quite a bit around here, so the water would freeze. These are actually heated waterers. They don't kick on unless it gets below freezing, but that way they always have water to drink, even if it's 0 or below 0 here. That keeps the water, doesn't keep the water warm, but it keeps it from freezing. Now, I always have 2 of these going, and luckily we do have electric in our chicken run. That makes a big difference. But I always leave one out in the outside run, just a regular water, because on the days it gets above freezing, then they can get water out of that too. So they have plenty of water sources.
Now, have you had to train the chickens how to drink out of it? They figure it out?
No, they figure it out, because their regular waters are nipples too.
Okay.
They've had nipple waters since the beginning, so they learned that really easy. Now, I also make sure they have plenty of food, and I feed them a variety of things. I feed them the fodder I showed you earlier. I feed them a pellet. It's a very high protein pellet. I feed them a mash that comes from our local granary. I feed them all kinds of different scraps from the kitchen as well. They get quite a variety of stuff, but they always have plenty of food to eat. They never starve. And during the winter, I try to keep them from getting bored, especially if it is snowy and they're stuck in this run for a while. So I always have a flock block hanging. They have this one just about done. That was a big block. But it just keeps them busy, pecking away at it, having fun. And if you see, we talked in the last video about having to clean this place out. That's our job come this spring. Take as much stuff out of this run as we can and put in fresh wood chips. That's not going to be a fun job, but it needs done. Chickens are messy. They really are, but they're fun. Apple, you like being in the video, don't you? She is so loud. And a lot of people say she doesn't sound like a chicken. She sounds like a seagull. She's crazy. She's got a lot to say.
All right. So why did you have me make that top of the cover there for your food?
Well, the way it's designed, they can't sit up here, because if chickens sit somewhere very long, you know what they do. So this keeps it clean, and it comes off easily to fill it with food. And this holds quite a bit of food. This is where I keep their pellets. This gets her quiet. You're a loud thing. You're too noisy. You're cute, and you lay nice eggs, but you're noisy. You gonna be good? You gonna be quieter?
So do you think she minds that we don't heat the chicken coop?
No, and that's something else in the winter. We do not heat our chicken coop. And a lot of people, it does get down to 0 and once in a while below 0 here. But chickens can handle the cold. They really can. The worst thing for a chicken is to have them in a heated coop at night, getting all warm, and then coming out in the day in the cold. Having that fluctuation between hot, cold, that's how you get sick chickens. So they acclimate to the cold. As fall hits and winter hits, they get used to it, and they can handle the cold pretty well.
Wet chickens are bad too.
You got to keep them dry. Now, in the coop where they sleep at night, there's a couple things. You don't want to draft, but you do want a ventilation, because all night they're breathing and creating moisture. And if there's too much condensation in there, it's too wet, that's when their combs get damp and they get frostbite on their combs. So you want to keep it as dry as you can in their coop where they sleep at night, but not hot. So they get no heat. Now it gets a little bit slightly warmer in there when they're all in there together at night, but not much at all.
It's surprising there is a lot of moisture in there, isn't there?
Yes, chickens can give off, well, they're also doing other stuff all night long that creates moisture.
Yeah.
But you want to have, some people close up their coop so there's no air whatsoever, and it's just like a completely enclosed
And then you
tube.
get frost on the walls and the other.
And they get frostbite on their combs and their wattles. They can get frostbite in their wattles, but it's usually on their cones, a little red thing on top of their head.
Yeah.
So I do not heat them in any way, shape, or form. And another risk people take is when they heat their coops with heat lamps. Every year you read about coops burning down because a heat lamp falls and catches on fire. So I will never be heating my chicken coop. They're completely fine.
I have a question for
Yes.
you. Who was your chicken architect? I'm admiring the egg window in the back there.
Oh, he was pretty creative. Yeah, that dirty egg window.
Yeah.
And you can see chickens create so much dust and dirt. So as we're cleaning out the bottom of the coop this spring, we also have to spray everything down and clean it up a little bit. Maybe do some painting. So we have some chicken coop maintenance to do. You girls are messy. Yeah, you are. But you give really delicious eggs, so you're worth it. Well, if you can see, I had the same chicken architect doing my chicken door from the coop too. Pretty artistic there. And this is wonderful, the automatic door closer. I have it set to go up at daylight and down right after dusk. And that's nice because if I don't get out in time, it at least closes it off and closes off the breeze and the draft. And as I showed you earlier when I opened those doors, at night we close those doors so there's not a lot of wind blowing through here in the winter. Now in summer, this does go down because they're protected from any kind of predators. But we leave the back doors open and have the hardware wire on so they get a lot of breeze in the summer. But in wintertime, it's closed up, stop the breeze, and they're happy in there all night long.
So you talked earlier about the ventilation. If you look up there, you can see there's a ventilation at the top.
Yep.
And then all along the edge between the top of the wall and the top, the corrugated metal, there's
So
ventilation.
air can get out of there easily, but it's not blowing right across the chickens and
No.
making them cold and whatever. It keeps them protected. So all in all, we're happy with our coop. We did a good job building the coop, dear.
Yeah.
Designing it and building it. But at wintertime, you just have to make sure they have food, water, and don't fight too much. That's another thing the flock buck does, keeps them from getting bored and fighting. You know, I give them lots of treats. That's why I do the fodder.
So do you find the chickens get sick more in the winter than the summer or not?
I haven't found that, no.
Okay.
I think mine had a respiratory thing. When was that? Last year, but it wasn't during the winter. They all started sneezing and stuff, but I gave them some Vet RX and I forget what else I did. Lots of electrolytes and extra feeds, and they all got better. But I think that was in the spring, actually. But no, they don't seem to get sick more in the winter.
So right now, though, we're concerned because there's the, is it the avian flu?
The avian flu is pretty close to us. It's in our county. So hopefully my girls stay healthy. People have asked me what I do to protect them. There's not much I can do.
Well, we do one thing. We don't have bird feeders up.
No, we don't attract wild birds to the thing.
Yeah.
Well, hummingbirds, but that's a different story. But wild birds do, even if I kept them in the enclosed run here, wild birds can fly in these little cracks here and there. So I just have to keep them as healthy as can be and hope for the best. So hopefully my girls survive, don't get sick.
But I guess the concern is that the wild birds would get it and then they could go flock to flock.
They go fly in and make their droppings and they can make my chickens sick.
Yeah, okay.
So I think there's been 2 or 3 commercial houses that have had it in Pennsylvania or near us. But I haven't heard anything for a couple weeks now, so maybe it's done here.
Yeah.
Dare to dream. But do the best we can to keep them healthy, but you can only do so much. Now, predators, we do have them pretty well predator-proofed, as much as we can. So in all of, 4.5, 5 years we've done it, I haven't lost any to a fox, to a raccoon, to a hawk, to anything.
Now, Ruby did her part this morning. I took her for her walk, and she chased the fox out of the field.
Yeah.
So.
We have foxes, a lot of foxes around here.
And coyotes.
And coyotes and raccoons.
Yeah.
All kinds of, and skunks. I think they eat the eggs. We have all kinds of things, and hawks. We have a lot of hawks. We even have an eagle.
A bald eagle.
So there's a lot of things that could kill my chickens. Now, in the summer, the weeping willow gives them a real big cover. But even in the winter, just the branches alone keep them protected. You know, it confuses the hawks. They can't really see through. So.
2 birds up at the bar here.
Yep, belly up. Probably need to fill them up again. If you want to know what frostbite looks like, that white chicken in the background there, see how there's little gray tips on the tip of her comb? She got a little tiny bit of frostbite this winter. And the ones with the bigger, taller combs are more apt to get it. You see, most of mine have very low, not big combs. It really does protect them from frostbite. But some of the ones with the real tall ones, they're more susceptible to it.
So do the combs on top get more, or what about down below the chin?
The wattles, they don't get it as often. It's usually the comb sticking up in the air. Now see, here's another, and she has the really tall, big combs, and they're a little bit gray on the tip. You can put Vaseline and stuff on the tips, but they seem to be fine, and they don't get it real bad, so they're fine. Are you fine, girl? I think you're molting. Either you're molting or you got picked on. You're missing a couple feathers there. One other thing I forgot to mention, I do tend to give them more high-carb treats, especially right before bedtime. Sometimes I throw some cracked corn in. Apparently, if they have a lot of high-carb things in their belly, they work harder to digest it, and that gives a little more heat. So that's supposed to keep them slightly warmer at night. So sometimes I'll give them like a little scratch with cracked corn, just kind of pamper them a little bit before bed. You appreciate it, don't you, girls? Hey, share it. Let some of these other girls get some. Okay? Oh, you're a piggy. You're not a chicken, you're a piggy. Good stuff, huh? Well, thanks for joining me in the chicken yard today as I tell you some things I do to take care of these girls in the winter. And if anybody has suggestions of other things I can do, let me know. I always like to learn how I can be taking better care of my girls. They're pretty healthy, but I can always learn more. So we'll see you in our next video, and we probably won't be in the chicken yard. Bye-bye.